Hey YouTube, this is Ben Yessel. How's it going? I know there's still a few videos I'm going to be making here. Been requested soon. I promise they'll come. I just have to mention a few things in this one video having to do with the nature of, I think, a few of my dreams last night. At least some aspects of them. So, I mentioned, a religious movie recently, and I think I did a decent job describing it. But I don't want anybody to think that discussing things like religion is easy. It's not. It's not hard because of my fear of backlash. It's hard because religion means a great deal to me, and it's something I want to talk about. But it's also it gets deeper into who I am, and so and it's also it says more about character. So these are some of the reasons why I've been hesitant, but it's a lot more meaningful talking about this stuff. And a lot of people don't treat religion like this. They seem to view it as something combative. And this is the problem with we I think we want to hear things that have to do with religion. It should be a lot more meaningful to all of us, but we're very wary of the fighting, and we're also wary of sometimes even the lack of clarity that's out there about what's what is actually in an internal sense true. But aside from getting into all that, to focus kind of on a few things here about what I was dreaming about. Of course, I can't remember too much of what it actually was, but I think you're going to pick up on some things here, and it really doesn't have always anything to do with one particular religion in this regard. It has more to do with the way people treat people, and more in some areas than others. It's more of a geographical thing, maybe. It's more of a cultural thing. It's more of a, and it's some. It can have some religious overtones, but okay. Just bear with me here. So, from what I could remember, at least in the last stream, especially, there was a feeling that I was, you know, about my brain was telling me, or some part of me was telling myself in my dream, especially when I woke up, that I was putting all of this energy and effort in the past, or at least I was somewhat trying to put energy and effort into trying to please people, especially my religion, my age, but others as well. And I was trying to please people, and they weren't really respecting me, or they, also there wasn't sometimes any interest romantically. Um, I've had people who have interested me romantically. That's a different subject. I'll get into maybe a little bit later. But there was a feeling that my efforts had been somewhat in vain to have stronger connections with people. Um, the reason I think this way, and I think a lot of people think this way too, it's because most of the people that I've known in the past, I just am not talking to anymore. Not because I don't want to talk to them, I do, but because I don't ever hear from them. And they maybe, but some part of me is saying, oh, that's because people move on and they they have, sorry, they have different people that they associate with now, and that's the reason why they don't ever talk to you in the future. But I've gone a step further and I thought, oh, okay, fine. But then how, when it's like, how deep was that connection to begin with? If I thought it was stronger, was it really that strong? But I wonder, that's just why I'm also very sheepish and not talking, like when I talk to someone I haven't talked to for a while, feeling bad that I haven't. I don't know why um, we all behave like this, more or less. And it's hard to just have more than a handful or dozen or so people that we're interacting with on a daily basis. But I guess getting back to maybe religion here a little bit with my dream I had last night, it was there was kind of this feeling of okay, so there are people that have been awesome people I still think well of, and there are people that maybe haven't been so awesome. So what am I doing, that is benefiting my life, and what am I doing that's not? And it's kind of like, well, it's helpful to conserve your energy when maybe there have been times when you spent it um, in a social respect that wasn't always very reciprocated. Um, and sometimes you learn things, about people, and you don't know, but you don't always in this social or spiritual realm. We're talking about other people, yourself. We're talking about people here. You can't always, you don't always feel like you know everything about what your experiences have taught you. There's so many different dimensions to people, and it's hard to say sometimes whether or not knowing somebody or having some kind of relationship with someone or not has been not so good or beneficial. It's hard to say. But there was this feeling, at least trying to get at something more concrete here, at least. I mean, I remember something having to do with, in my dream, having to do with going to some house, and I was had some new friends I'd made or something, and I was showing somebody a house that was the house that one of my old landlords owned that belonged to my church, but he had done some remodeling, and he was not aggressive, but he was like, "Oh, well, this room is, you need to stay out of this room. This room is not to show other people or something, or it's." And I hadn't even entered the room, but it was not the most pleasant thing to happen, because it happened in front of people that I was friends with. That I just thought, oh, I could show this house to them. Wasn't thinking about which rooms not to go into, but I remember that part of the dream. And the funny thing is that the house looked very different than the gentleman that I knew that that dream was referring to, and it looked very different and everything. So it's more of this attitude. I think the attitude that I disliked, I've seen it out everywhere, not just in my religion, but it's a kind of it's kind of like, okay, at some point you feel like you're friends with someone, and they like, yeah, okay, yeah, and then it's like, so then you assume that you can kind of let your hair down a little bit, or well, if you're a girl, right? Or if you assume that you can kind of, just relax a little bit, unwind, be less formal, be more your real self with that person, I guess. And then, what that means is kind of in my case, the whole lack of boundaries thing, it becomes into play more. At least you don't sense the boundaries as much, other than the obvious things. And a lot of people. That's why a lot of people they don't have their landlord. They avoid having their landlord be their friend or be in the same church as them, because it's the nature of the, anyway, all that kind of thing. So, but even when I had even though this guy was my landlord, even then there were a lot of things that he did that I know why he did them, but they weren't the sort of things that like a really dear friend would do. But then some of it was because he was a landlord, but he just didn't know what he was doing, I think. Anyway, but But yeah, it's kind of like, geez, I remember. You remember it. This is just the nature way I am. Well, actually, that's not big. I'm gonna mention something else. But yeah, sometimes there's that kind of that vagueness with people that you think you know well, and when you find out you don't know as well as you thought you did, that can be uh, very jarring. But I was, right after I had this dream, I was like, oh man, people in my church are so arrogant. They can be so arrogant. That was one of my, it can be so cliquish. When you're younger, you use that word, or they can be so judgmental. But I started to, depend. That's not doesn't have to do with my church. It doesn't have to do with that. It has to do with just people in general that are in the United States. And I was kind of zeroing in on white folks, but it could be a lot of different folks. But yeah, that. But it was seemed like it was a little bit more European origin. Or at least most people I've known that way, and would make all kinds of judgments about you that were the sorts of judgments that we tend to find more amongst European Americans, because that's mostly who I've known. But it's the nature of those judgments, and I do feel like I have been kind of in a rat race in my life. I do feel like um, a lot of people just expect me to be a part of this rat race, and I'm like, man, you know, like you guys that think I have to do this or that or this or that, you know, who are you to say that stuff? There are some things that you ought to do in life. It'd be good to do, but if you don't do them, I mean, like, what the heck, you know? I don't know. I think everybody. I'm still trying to find my course in life, in so many respects, and it seems like people have really either one gotten me very wrong in the past, misjudged me, um, or two, um, well, I would say two, and it's been hard for me to be very plain with people in some respects regarding what I'm like, maybe. But so much of who I am is just not very socially apparent for a lot of people, and a lot of people I just don't feel like I've connected with in the past. It's just the nature of beast and stuff being the way I am. But again, that whole arrogance thing, like if I come across someone in life, I mean, this is a lot of people who I come in contact with, or it's a more professional thing right now. It's teaching music and stuff. So for all the people I've known that I teach their kids or I teach them, they're some pretty great folks, and you know, um, I can't say every single person though has been absolutely amazing. I have to say there have been some that have been a little bit irksome, but they don't show that side of that they don't show that side of themselves to me, because they might be aware that that's not so pleasant of an attribute about themselves. So they want to put their best foot forward, kind of thing. But I really don't know. But the this is the way things are right now. In I think I'm trying to zero in on what I'm talking about. It's the funny thing is, people think that sometimes I'm beating around the bush. I'm not. I'm actually explaining bit by bit more and more of this whole train of I think something that we all kind of deal with, more or less, which is just, again, it has to do with people. It has to do with the deeper aspects of people, the things that are not as apparent. They're more hidden a lot of times. Well, so if somebody if somebody is socially driven for reasons that are not, let's just say, less heavenly, they're less celestial, well, it's going to, you know, become very apparent at some point, at least. Well, at least more and more. What drives them to want to know other people and have relationships. By less heavenly, I mean, like you could think it's anything from vanity to material wealth, or looking like they have a lot of wealth, other people, to there's other things, but I won't get into them right now. But they're definitely not so great a lot of times. Some people have had no patience for a conversation with me about anything of a refining nature. I don't know. To be frank, to be very, very plain here, I guess you could say, that there's a population in my church that's amazing. They're amazing people. I miss them very, very much. There are a certain core of people that are like that. But there are quite a few that aren't that way. And then outside of my church, there still are some here and there that are amazing people. There's a concentration of people in my church, again, that are really awesome folks. But then, again, elsewhere, yeah, you can find them. But I don't know. I teach some amazing Christian folks and just amazing people. And this is something I keep thinking about over and over again is what do you do to be a good person, or what do you do to be a person that is more desirable to be a friend to someone else, right? What makes someone a good friend, right? I have to say, it often comes down to things like sincerity and humility, and how much do you want to be a good person, and there's always things that you have in common with someone, interest-wise, but that sort of thing. But it's a lot of it's just how do you feel around somebody. And so, getting back to my dream a little bit, getting back to this dream I had, it can be very upsetting when somebody that you think you know really well, and you think that you know all their rules and everything that for their place, and nope. It's you didn't know us. There was somebody I played with in my woodwind dectet a while back. I won't get into specifics, but it's an older gentleman. Nothing. It's not about being old. It's not about being old. It's just I played with this group for like I don't know 2 years at least, a while, and I thought that and this was not a paid group. This was a volunteer group, and there are a lot of things about we met at their home, and they had this whole wine thing. Of course, I don't drink wine, so. But they had this wine thing they did. They sometimes had other stuff. And so they would give us food afterward. We'd have this conversation, but it was often so late that I just couldn't. I mean, I was so tired getting out of there, to begin with. But there are other people in the group that were pretty cool, and it was a nice group. This is a very, basically, and in summary, this is a group that was very. We'll just say it was very. Okay, I'm just gonna say it. It's okay because I can talk about my church and how people are, but this group was a very European American Seattleite kind of group, not necessarily religious. No. I mean, no, but yeah, I mean, but this was like, I mean, it was just people were talking about their vacation homes and wines and I know people like that just the artsy crowd, but yet they're not really as yeah, they just live for their wine. I mean, it's just that kind of. And my own grandparents live in Provo. They when they were younger, they weren't LDS. They knew people like that, and a lot of people that like their company will like that. I've known people that seem to kind of put a lot of importance on wine. I'm not saying, this is, the funny thing is that you might think this is a kind of Italian, French, Spanish kind of thing. Well, I just haven't known as many people from those backgrounds. For me, so much when I talk about alcohol, the clear, for me, it's Germany. It's German Americans that seem to have this, you know, thing about them that, some of these families that, you know, I'm trying to think of how to put this because beer is something different. I don't drink beer, but beer is a very kind of not a poor man. It's not a poor man's thing, but it's just beer for me is often associated more with factory work and especially the Coors thing and the Budweiser. Everybody that I've known that is a blue collar worker, beer, smoking, right? More or less. That's kind of thing. It doesn't matter what your background is, of course. There, but when it comes to wine, wine is just like these wine collectors. Yeah, it's vanity. I mean, do people really love the taste of wine that much? I just might rather eat grapes. But if you like wine, that's fine. I have nothing against I mean, I don't drink it myself. But there's this kind of this culture to it that's very. I've never liked it, and this culture was there in this woodwind deck, and I played with them because of how it was a great group to play in. But I had my reasons for not being in it, and you know, older folks combined with the Seattleite thing, combined with wine people. No, I just was like, you know. So, but at the very least, this is where I'm going with this kind of topic. Gentleman I knew. So I thought at one point that he knew me well enough that I, could speak in a more casual way, but not disrespectful way about anything, but just being very free. And I was a little tired. One time before rehearsal in orchestra. Now, I think this is look back on this. I don't know why he responded not so politely. He thought, yeah, I don't know the reasons. I just know that whatever it was, I was really, really upset with the way he acted. I even wondered if he suspected me of things that I never intended or didn't mean to say. But it was something where this guy, I should know this, he isn't the sort of person he's not the sort of person that is apt to fully understand someone, such as myself, as well. And yeah, he's always been kind of a little bit aloof and distant. And I used to think that was just kind of a wry sense of humor, as that just kind of a whatever. I think it goes to this particular person, it goes beyond that a little bit. I just think he honestly, he doesn't treat people, he might be very polite on the outside, but he just doesn't have a lot of warmth. And I've known people like that too, but they made that very apparent right off the bat, rather than keeping that, under the radar. And so this is, it might start out as a little bit of a dislike of some people in my church. It might have started out like that a little bit with this dream. But what it is it's I realized it's kind of a dealing with, in my dream on some level, is dealing with things about people that are very frustrating to deal with, specifically with regard to, I thought we were better friends, or I thought we knew each other better, but no, not really. Or, I guess I should be more, act more formally around you. I guess the only person, the only people in this gentleman's case that he feels all that casual around is his wife. That's it. that kind of person. I don't know. On that note, for instance, if I ever talk to Chevy Chase, probably the next life, and Chevy is an interesting guy to bring up in this respect because maybe if you guys know what he's like, you know exactly what I'm talking about. That maybe he has some kind of psychological disorder or some kind of narcissistic thing going on there, which is why it's funny because you love his movies, but once you see him in real life, you're like, oh my gosh, what's this guy's problem, right? Well, Chevy's gonna be in a similar yet a little bit different situation in the next life because in the next life, I don't think anybody's gonna be. There's no hierarchy of socioeconomic status. It's just a question of what your character's like. So people are naturally gonna gravitate toward people that are like them and more in sense of character. There is gonna be more of that real clear difference. Yeah, again, regarding character, moral character, and like, are you truly a heavenly person? Are you kind of in the middle, or are you not so great? And hopefully, we still have time to improve our situation. But I don't know, But Chevy's gonna find that we'll know what part of his behavior was psychological and what part wasn't so related to psychological stuff. But Chevy might have some apologizing to do. He might be very humbled. I'm sure he will be. Yeah, I know his grandma. There's some of those things about that whole thing. His grandma was abusive to him. I don't know. I've heard about all those kinds of things. And if Chevy ever snubbed me, knowing all that stuff about him. See, here, that's the thing. This is the way we are as people. If I talk to him in this life for whatever reason, and he ever would treat me disrespectfully, it actually would be okay because I would know all these things about Chevy before talking to him. I already have a lot of emotional safeguards in place. I've already seen him act like a jerk. I've heard of all the SNL stuff that he did. So yeah, if I talk to him and he's like, yeah, I'm Chevy and you're not, and ignore whatever things about me were kind of cool, or ignore the way I was, try people with kindness and whatever. If he ignored all that stuff and just went on about himself, like, oh, that's Chevy Chase. Yeah, okay. This is what I expected. The not so pleasant stuff. And yes, he's a musician too, or composer, I don't know, songwriter at least, and he has all these other hobbies, and he's like a very smart guy, and he's the handsomest man alive. yeah. All right. So, but the thing is, I expect that. I would expect that from him. But when you don't expect something from someone, it's when you don't expect something, or you try to put on rose-colored glasses about somebody, and then it comes back to hit you, right? That's kind of more what I'm talking about, I think. And, a lot of times in my dreams, I'm in houses or buildings where it looks kind of enough like the place that I know it's referring to, but it's a little different. A lot of times, I seem to be very, very taken with mid-1900s architecture or the 60s and 70s interior design. It's just the stuff of dreams because of all the colors involved and everything. And everything's so boxy modern after that, somewhat. But that's just, kind of an aesthetic kind of thing. Anyway, thanks for listening this far. I think I've driven my point home pretty well at this point. Just wrapping this up here. So yeah, it's a question of, okay, so who do you spend more time with when you just know people, in the future? And sometimes do you feel like you're kind of conjured into something? I don't know. I just know that there's not always a clear, yes, I should have talked to this person, or no, I shouldn't have. A lot of times it's kind of everything gives you life experience kind of thing. That doesn't kill you. Whatever doesn't kill you makes you stronger. It's just that a lot of times your frustrations come out in your dreams, and sometimes a bit more or less what they were about. Getting back to my original landlord, right? That kind of idea. Well, to be honest, he's not a bad guy. He's actually a pretty cool guy. He was just, at the end of it all. So he had been taken advantage of, and he had made some rash decisions. He was prone to making rash decisions financially and things. But he'd also made, he's a different kind of guy. In some respects he reminds me of myself, other respects not so much. But he, I don't know. I know what he was like. He's a decent guy. He's not a bad guy. But, if you want to have a buddy kind of landlord thing, someone in your church, if that's going to work out, which it often doesn't, it's probably a good idea to not try to be a be a financial bully to people that don't have a lot of options. It's probably a good idea if you want to have people. If you want people to be friends with you, if you want to stay connected with somebody, I think I'm kind of broadening this a little bit, but I say because it applies to everybody, of course, if we want to have friends in the future that stay somewhat connected with us, then we ought to not try to nickel and dime somebody. When you do that, when you take advantage of people at some level or another, they're going to sense that at some point in the future, and they're less likely to, want to have anything to do with you. I can tell you more people that I felt shafted by it that way, but there's not too many people. But a lot of times it's just, some people are really jerks, but in a very subtle way. And it's great to have a lot of patience toward those people, but at some point, I imagine as I've gotten a little bit older, you start to lose patience with that kind of stuff. And you just, if I ever was invited into the club, right? Not the club, not the Illuminati, right? But if I was ever invited into a socially elite club of some sort, where everybody didn't have to, okay, you're automatically talking about the wine drinkers, right? Or the golf club guys, or the guys in Caddyshack that everybody made fun of, the socially elite, group. That's who you're talking about. Well, that's pretty obvious, right? Kind of, but it's any group that's elite, any group that people envy on some form or another, so it depends on the person, right? If I was ever invited to that group, depending on the nature of the group, I'd be like, okay, you guys are okay, sure. But it was just a question of how close I'd be with those folks, and maybe if